now I would like our first speaker of the day to come up, Charley Valera. And many of you know Charley, and you might know him in different capacities. I've known him for many, many years as a fellow realtor. Charley also is an ace pilot. Ace pilot, and owner of the FCA Flight School. And there was a chamber meeting, I think just last summer, where you and Paula Savard took people for rides. So some people in this room, anybody go for a ride with Charley, a flight with Charley last year? Oh, we got a few.
I know there's a couple hidden out there.
Yeah, Roy had to go and test it out. Yeah. We sent him up first. So I feel like I know a lot about you, yet I was surprised to find out you were also an author, and you took on this great undertaking of writing this book. But also, there may be some people here who don't know you as well as I do, so tell us a little bit about yourself in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, they'll be serving lunch by the time we're done, right? Well, let's see. I'm a local realtor. I've been in business for probably 30 years, give or take 10. I am hopefully a wonderful husband to my wife Cheryl, who's sitting over here.
Your wonderful wife.
My wonderful wife. And I have 2 boys. They're in their early 30s, and they're locally as well. I also run the FCA Flight Center. I'm a commercial pilot. What else is there? I do competition gun shooting once in a while. That's always
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so watch it. No, I'm
Hey, I was raised on a rifle range. My parents were 22 match rifle shooters.
There you go.
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with that.
It's funny how these circles just kind of go around.
Isn't it?
So I could go on. The book writing was a little bit different. I had never attempted anything like this. I just didn't want the stories to stop.
So when did you get the first seed of an idea? And while being a realtor and being a pilot certainly takes a lot of skills, writing is another whole set of skills, and it's not something that everybody can do. So when did you first get this seed of the idea of thinking, gee, I know a lot of people say I should write a book, but they don't do it.
Right. Well, I've been writing articles for the newspapers for years, not just the newspapers, but magazines, aviation magazines, real estate magazines. And so it wasn't that difficult at first in my mind to say, I'll just sit down and get these stories.
I won't be offended if you play to the camera.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to look at me all the time.
It's just common, when you talk to someone to look at it. So I had decided that what I would do is I'll sit down and get some of these stories. And at first it was just going to be an ebook. I didn't have the intention of making a hard copy book because I thought it was going to be too time consuming. I was in a little bit of a hurry because I felt like these guys were getting older, and as a result I wanted to get as many stories as I could. So although it says it's my father's war, it's not about my father, it's about everybody in here's father, uncle, grandfather, the old guy next door with the flag waving out. There's 18 different veterans featured in here. And so again, I just got their stories. But at first it wasn't a question of how am I going to write this? How am I going to do it? It was more, I got to hurry up. Time's wasting. These guys are in their mid-90s, some of them in their high 90s. And then to find the ones that really could remember the details. I wanted the details. Most of you probably read The Greatest Generation, or at least seen Saving Private Ryan. I like to think this is a little of both because it is kind of gory at times, but it's also an amazing collection of these stories of what these guys went through. So what I did was I sat down with a video camera because I wanted to get it right. I can't, you talk about memory, forget about it. I don't even remember being here.
Either.
No, but I put some gray in. Did you see it?
Yes.
You like that?
Nice touch, Charley.
It makes me look distinguished.
Yeah.
So I sat down with all these guys and I ran these video cameras, just like you and I are talking. I had the camera here. And this way here, when I got back to to my house, I could run a couple of computers and scrub it back to make sure I'm getting exactly what they told me. Because I wanted it doesn't have to be, I wanted this to be exactly the way they saw it and the way they lived it and the way they portrayed it. Because it just affected every one of us. Everybody in here has got a story about somebody. We can all think back about somebody that was in World War II that, yeah, I should have asked him a little bit more, and he never mentioned it. One of the gentlemen in here, Fern Fichette, his son came to me the other day and said, had my dad died in his 80s, we never would have heard any of these stories, none. He's 97 now, and Fern lives in Lummiston, amazing guy with a great memory. And I can give you some stories if you'd like. But had he died in his 80s, they never would have heard these. And that's a shame because it's such an important part of our heritage.
But we hear that many of these veterans never wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny, as I've been doing this research, and some of them were pretty open and some were absolutely not. Santo De Salvo, when I first went to talk with Santo, all he talked about was food. Typical Italian, all he's talking about. So here I am trying to interview him, and he's saying, well, then I was in France. Oh, what was it like in France? Well, we had cognac, we had... No. Yeah.
Typical Italians, they talk with their hands too, don't they? I notice you have
That's why I put the book down.
So you can talk.
Well, I got to talk. And so Santo was quite the character, but so yeah, it was difficult. And one of the guys, you know, I hear from all these veterans pretty regularly. One of them, Bill Purple, is a friend of mine on Facebook. Amazing. He emails me, he calls me. The guy's amazing at 94. What was I saying? Where was I going with this? Don't even remember.
It happens to all of us.
Well,
we were talking about, well, you were saying some examples where people did and did not want to talk about it. And the
Yes.
food. You finally
Yes.
got the food guy to talk.
Okay, and one of the guys called me the other day to let me know that, he said, you know, maybe why we never talked about it was because if you weren't there, you don't know exactly how it was. It was so bad. And we can tell you stories, but unless you were sleeping in snow, and worrying about food, and being shot at, you know, let's not take that out of the equation, you won't understand what it was really like, especially where it was a world war, and there was, I think, about 85 million people that were killed. So it was pretty devastating. The entire country, our country, got behind it just incredibly. So they weren't so quick to talk to it about us, but he did say there were times when he'd get together at a VFW or something and with other World War II veterans, and they might reminisce a little bit. But for the most part, like with my own father, he never mentioned it. He just said, I was in England 13 months. Long after he died, I find out, well, yeah, you were in England 13 months, but you were overseas for 3 years. When we got his discharge papers, I didn't even know how to read them. I had a World War II veteran read them for me, a Tuskegee Airman that I knew, and I asked him if he'd read it for me. And he said, geez, you know, who is this guy? And I said, my father. He said, well, he had 11 campaigns. He was in Normandy, Battle of the Bulge, Rome, Po Valley, Sicily, I mean, all over, North Africa. And no wonder he didn't talk about it. No wonder the old man was a little nuts, right? And that's probably why, you know, the guys that are laughing know that that's probably why your father was a little, you know, it was tough. Those are tough
So you
years.
never had the opportunity to really talk with your father about his experiences?
I did not. And I'm finding that when I was interviewing these guys, their families, if they were present, heard stories that they had never heard before. Mm-hmm. And so it took a little, you know, getting them at ease, and that I was not going to put anything in here that was that they didn't want, or that was going to put them not in a proper light. I wanted the book so that when children and grandchildren read it, they'll be proud of their parents, grandparents, neighbors, or whatever, and to shed a little bit of a different light on some of these guys, because we're losing one World War II veteran every 3 minutes. Yeah, every 3 minutes. That's really...
Yeah. As I alluded earlier, being a writer takes a lot of different skills and it takes a lot of discipline. Mm-hmm. Did you have a particular pattern other than you videoed the interview and then you worked on it? And how did you manage to do that while running your school, mm-hmm. flying, and selling real estate?
Just burning the candles, you know, you just burn the candles on both ends. If you like what you're doing, then it's not work. It's not, oh, you know, I got to get this done. I was in a hurry because of their ages, and I wanted this book published while as many of them were still around as possible. So that was my goal, to hurry up. There were days when I would interview 3 veterans at once. So I had a video camera going, which fortunately is time-stamped. And then I would take some notes, and any photographs almost all the pictures in here were from their own private collection. So when they put the pictures out, I'd take snapshots and I'd ask them about the photos so I'd be able to portray it properly. And then when I got back home, usually in the mornings, I'd get up early and just lay everything out and just start hitting it. But once you once you're hearing what they're saying, I need to explain certain things. So I had to do some research. K rations, C rations, I don't know, what's a K ration, C ration? Well, I need to figure it out so the average reader can understand what the difference is. Charlie Sanderson had a howitzer cannon. This thing was enormous. And I had to explain what he was talking about when Charlie was saying, well, we had to measure the recoil. We had to check how hot that cannon was getting. So I did try to do as much research as I could to explain.
And that took time. That's a very important part of writing, not only to make sure you get it right, but so the reader understands what you're talking about. That's a different set of skills.
Yeah, and I did rely on Cheryl to help me with that because she doesn't understand a lot of the World War II lingo like I did, and I wanted to make sure that I was explaining things properly. And I did get quite a bit of feedback from my little support group of guys that helped me through this. So.
Hearing you say how you managed to juggle everything reminds me of when we interviewed Hank Philippi Ryan, which you all may remember from Channel 7. And she's been here with us at the Chamber. And when she decided to become a novelist, she said, I knew something had to go, so I decided it would be sleep. And Hank is also going to be a speaker at our March 1st Ladies' Luncheon. Men can come too. She's fabulous. Don't miss her. But anyway, may you be as successful as she's been. I think she's sold 8 novels so far. You mentioned Tom Brokaw's book.
Yes.
Number one, does he know? You've read his book. Does he know about your book?
Probably.
I think he knows.
I don't know.
Good one. Good answer.
Well, it's funny because the book's available on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble. And I can't track my sales, but I can track like where it is. I can't get the exact number, but at first I saw like number 55,000. Holy cow, right? 55,000. But then when you look at the bottom, you're 55,000 out of 8 million. So I went, wow, I guess there's some interest in it. So I was 50-something thousand out of 8 million. I was hoping it'd be a little bit higher, but hey, whatever. So I don't know who's been reading it. I know I've had a lot of people reach out to me that I didn't know of, people that are in museums and various places throughout the country. So I've been pretty excited about the reviews and the outreach. It's been a whirlwind, to say the very least.
Did you just peek at my notes? Because I just wrote down reactions,
I did not.
Feedback.
No, I haven't.
So you are getting a lot, you're getting good press too. I've read a lot of articles about this.
Thanks. Yeah, the feedback has been fantastic. And again, I really tried to write this for the families. I was concerned that I was going to put something in there. Even though I didn't want to cross anything, you're always worried about the family and will they be okay with it. So fortunately, a lot of the feedback from the families have been great, as well as just the readers, just the public. There's reviews on Amazon, as well as, it's nice to get the private emails as well, where people say, thanks a lot. That was interesting. I couldn't put it down. Good stuff.
That's always a quandary for an author, especially with a nonfiction book, is do you let the participants, the people you're quoting, do you give them a peek at what you've written about them before you publish?
I do, yeah. As a matter of fact, I can remember sitting down with Charlie Sanderson, and I read the whole thing to him, everything that I wrote there. So I wanted him to know, to make sure that, if there's something off or not right. I sat with Bill Purple and we went through line items just about. So they don't get the final version, but they do get quite a bit of it. It's important that they do get to see what the world is about to read about them.
That's a very nice courtesy on your part. And when if you're reading aloud to one of them, do you catch some things yourself that you might have said differently?
No.
No? Oh, well, he gets it right the first time. What a guy, Charlie.
No,
what a guy.
Again, I'm watching it on TV, so I'm getting to write down what they're saying. Yeah. And I have a copy of the manuscript there, and it's probably this thick. It was really a lot of paperwork. There was a lot to it. It was great. It was awesome.
But that's a hard part too, is how to cut it down, what to leave in, what to take out.
Yeah, and what additional to put in. I didn't want to make this so big. Originally, the book had another like 40 pages in it, and the price of it, they wanted $42 for a hardcover, and I said, that's too high. What do I got to do to get it lower? So I had to change some things around. Mostly it was pictures, photographs. So I have hundreds more, but I'm just going to put them on my website. So if somebody wants to go in, they're not on there yet, they will be soon. but I have videos and photographs that I wanted to put on there. You know, you talked about the greatest generation. When I read that, I wanted to know more. I said, well, what was it like after the war? Where did these people go? What was it like before the war? Where were their parents from? You know, because most of them weren't from America. Very few people were. They were all immigrants, right? And so I felt like there was a big missing block. And then because they were all, like I said, the West Point graduates, about the average guy, you know. So that's kind of what drove me to
But then when you were interviewing people, you had the questions that you wanted to know from Brokaw's book. And you mentioned that your book is very different than his, and mainly, as I see it, is the fact that yours is very local. And any of us reading it are going to recognize some of the family names. And about the cover of the book, that is a photo of your dad.
The cover, yeah, you know, I decided to go with a self-publishing because I wanted control over, I'm a bit of a control person, right? I wanted this to, my vision of this book was supposed to be like this. And so what happened was, my father's photo's on here. That flag I have at my house. It's a 48-star flag. It's an original cotton. God knows where it was originally done. It's in pretty tough shape. And this photo down here, the guy with the real nice tan is in the back of the book. So he is in here. It's all, and again, it's not about my father. It's about all of ours, and our relatives, and all the people next door.
And it's not only for sale on Amazon, and you don't even have to go to the bookstore, folks. Hang around a little while. You can buy a copy from Charley right here and have it autographed. And you have two versions, the hardcover and the paperback?
Yes, I do, yeah.
That was a smart move also.
Well, you know, I know how I am when I buy books, you know. I don't know, do I want the hard? It depends what I'm going to do with it. If I'm going to have it signed, I might want the hard copy. But I was with Casey Sherman recently, and he gave me a soft copy. He wrote, what did he write? Patriots Day, that movie that's just coming out. He did that one. He did a few other ones.
So you want to give them the prices? Because I'm sure they're all thinking, how much is the book?
$3,000, no. On sale today.
It hasn't sold enough. We're going to boost the price today.
Yeah. The hardcovers are $30, rounded down to $30, and $20 for the paperbacks. And I'll be happy to make them out personally to whomever you want, whether it's yourselves or family members. It has been interesting because sometimes I have made them out to somebody else's parents, just out of memoriam, I guess. And so I'll have the books here. They're on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and of course, charleyvalera.com.
Right.
And you can spell it any way you want.
I will thank you on behalf of the community because it is